Right, Ronin man, talking about beliefs, or not even beliefs in my mind, like almost like baked in ideas that feel like they're a part of you. You know, like you don't. There's that story of the fish in water. He doesn't know he's in water. I get tired of that example, but it's kind of a good example because it is one of these kind of things where you don't actually realize that you have a belief. Like if you knew it was a belief, like believing in like God or something, you know, you'd be like, oh, I believe in God, right? But if you think like I had ideas like if somebody's unhappy, like, you know, near me or whatever, somebody close to me, you know, like a family member or a lover or whatever, my idea was then I should do something to kind of get them in a better mood or make them happy somehow, you know? Right. This was kind of my job. This is what they should do. It's what I do. It's what everybody does. I never even questioned that this was not normal belief, you know? I like I said, I didn't even think it was a belief. Like, I thought it was like I have two arms, right? Obviously, you know? And obviously if somebody's unhappy, you should, you know, do something, make them feel better. Like these kind of beliefs. And then I would have never even known I had these beliefs. Like these didn't even like I can't even tell you how deep this shit is. Like this isn't like beyond not registering. This is like, I'm sure that this is the way it is. I'm confident. Like there is no other way. Like I'm breathing air. The earth has gravity. You know, this is the way humans relate. If you don't do these things, you're a bad person, right? You don't give a fuck, right? Like if you don't try to help your friend and make him feel better, you're a bad person. Like that's a evil. Like you don't care, you know? So it wasn't even like, it was just like a thing, right? Like if I see somebody starving in the street, you know, I might give them some food, or someone's gonna get run over, I'll grab them and get them out of the road. You just have to do that, right? But then after, you know, being in an abusive relationship with an abusive person, I should say, all of a sudden, like, I was, you know, the only time you change is when you have to change, right? You're not going to change if you don't have to change. You know, if things are going pretty well, especially fundamental beliefs like this, like I said, like I honestly hate calling them beliefs because they're not even beliefs. They're just like sun comes up in the morning kind of thing. Like, you know, why would you question that? Like that's a lot of energy to fucking question something that's so obvious, you know. But there's things like that inside of you that if they cause you trouble, if they don't cause you trouble, it's fine. But I still think it's worth even knowing this, just because there's some really counterproductive stuff that it's been implanted in your mind, either from society or from an abusive person when you were young, from a TV show, a movie. You know, we just pick up beliefs like candy on Halloween or something. Like we think that they're really serious, but they're not. They're just things that we came across, basically. Like I know for sure that I'm brainwashed a little bit because of the Chinese, you know, propaganda. Because China, like, they control the news, they control all the messages in the media, they control everything in the movies, they control, like, pretty much almost like thought itself in China. It's very, very powerful, very, very successful too. I would say it's the world's most successful thought control experiment ever made by man. And they've taken all the kind of knowledge they got from North Korea prison camps, where the U.S. soldiers, when they would convince them, like they would have them in the cell, and they would convince them that nobody cared about them, like nobody cared, like they did not care if they lived or died. And then the guys would, and this is like actually true. Like this is not like some story, like, you know, so many stories on the internet that are not true, but these soldiers, they would actually believe that no one cared about them, and they would get a blanket or whatever, and they would go in the corner of their cell, and they would die like 3 days later. They would literally die because they lost all hope, you know. And like if they didn't do that, they'd live for like 10 years. That was no problem. Like they're getting food and everything, but they totally lost hope. And I saw this with my my cat in high school, because I had this cat, and Casey, awesome cat, man, best cat you ever seen. It's like a dog cat, I used to call it. He'd sleep around my neck like a fur, because I was in junior high school. and or high school at that time, and then he would sleep around my neck like a fur coat, and then I would skateboard down hills like 50 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour, with him sleeping there. He was the best cat you ever had, you know. Even when I ate shit, the cat would be fine, and then he would get up and get back on my neck, fall asleep. You know, I had him trained perfectly, right? And but what happened with Casey was he got a bladder infection that was really, really serious, and so he couldn't piss. So when this happened, it was the last week of school, and so you know we noticed that there was all these holes like in the garden, like all of a sudden we thought it was like gophers or something, right? And then you know somebody said Casey's making those holes, and then we're like, what the fuck, right? And so didn't make sense because like holes everywhere. And then somebody finally realized that Casey hasn't gone to the bathroom for like a week. And so he just kept digging holes and sitting there. And what happened was he had a bladder infection was so painful that he couldn't go. He could not go to the bathroom. So we took him down. I remember it was graduation day when I was 16 years old. We took him to the doctor. They do some kind of a flush. I get bummed out. This cat was so good, man. But either way, Casey couldn't piss, so when they put the thing in, he was fine, right? But that fucked him over because he didn't know he was fine. So, like, he died like the next day. He couldn't piss. He thought he couldn't piss. Really fucking weird. But when I saw that, I thought, when I read the, the soldiers, I thought, yeah, that's true. You can actually die because you give up. Like, it's for real. Like, I remember that. Because it didn't make sense, because we called the doctor, and he's like, Casey's fine. You know? But he gave up, and that was it, man. And he never pissed. He never even tried. Okay, if he would have tried, it would have worked. And we couldn't make him try, you know? That was the weirdest thing. Because you can't speak cat language, right? But it's really fucked up. Like the mind is very, very complex. Your mind is very, very fragile, essentially. And we think that we're, you know, especially in the modern era, I would say that most people think that they have control of their mind. And that's a pretty normal belief because you study, you learn, you know, you make decisions, you have discipline. And so, you know, that's kind of a normal thought. But what changed me about this was when I lived in China. So, like I said, the propaganda, I would watch, you know, I speak Chinese, so I would like watch the Chinese news and I would read, you know, I'm not such a great reader, but I basically would listen to videos, watch the news and the radio a lot. And so I'd be walking around listening to the radio, and then I realized all of a sudden, like, when I studied Japanese, it was different because Japan is not like controlled by propaganda, you know. I mean, it is on certain issues like about the emperor and stuff, but nothing that I care about, right? It's like basically the news is the news. There's a fire, you know. In China, it's not like that. It depends on who was responsible for that fire, you know, what was burned, how much vulnerability does China have. Like, there's all these factors that go into like what they write in propaganda. It's not always bad. Like sometimes they'll squash something that's actually good about China, and the reason why they'll squash it is because too many people get too nationalistic. So it's like really complex the propaganda. So because of that, you're always trying to, like, if you live in China, you're a lot of like smart people, like a lot of like my friends, we would get together and then try to figure out what was actually going on. Like Xi Jinping's got his new thing. Like, is it working? Or, you know, I heard a rumor someone tried to kill him. Like, is that true? What do you think? Like, what? And we would all like brainstorm ideas. And then a lot of these guys were like China experts, like you see on CNBC and stuff. So, my friends, so we kind of got a good handle on it. But you never really know what's true. You're never 100% sure. But you do get pretty good at predicting and then kind of knowing where things are going to go. And then you think, okay, I was right that time, you know. And so that's kind of like, I really enjoyed that because I like complex things, you know. I like difficult things. I really enjoy that. So, but also I realize that I am influenced. Okay, my belief system, you know, is influenced by Chinese propaganda because I was exposed to it for so long. I was there for 10 years, and I had been going there for like 16 years before that. So 26 years of being in China, over and on and off, 10 years solid, and speaking Chinese. And so I know, and I tell people this, I say I am influenced, I am partly brainwashed by Chinese propaganda. And a lot of people will say they're not. And this is when I know it's not true. It's like I can't even me, I can't control what influences my brain. It's very, very difficult, very, very difficult to get in there and figure out what's going on in your brain. I will if it's something really important, But a lot of this stuff is not that important, right? A lot of this propaganda was not, I don't consider it crucial to my life, so I don't bother with it, right? But it's all back to like what we were saying before, the thing, right? Is your belief system, right? So before I was with an abusive person in a relationship, I had never experienced someone, basically like propaganda, someone trying to do bad things to me, like actively, like not on accident, right? Like everybody makes mistakes, but an abusive person, like a really seriously, like a malignant narcissist or a psychopath, what they will do is they will actually, well, it depends on the level, right, of the person, but the worst type, they actually would be happy if you committed suicide. Like that's the lowest, that's the worst type. Whereas they just don't, they like not only wouldn't care, but they would smile. And the reason why they would smile, it's so hard to believe, but is because they feel very powerful. Because they know they caused that. And so that makes them feel very strong, very powerful. So that there are this kind of things. So I was in this situation, and I started to I got to this point where it was like pretty serious point, right? Where I wasn't sure what I was gonna. I couldn't figure out what happened to me. Like I just could not figure it out. Like why was I down? Like what was going on in my brain? I was out of there. I was totally on my own, but it was lingering. It was still in my mind. I had been programmed. And so I had to go in. That's what forced me to figure out beliefs. Like I was saying, like the belief that you have to make other people happy, or that you should make other people happy if they're not happy. And that seems so benign to me. Like it doesn't sound dangerous, right? Like you want to help people, right? Like what's so bad about that? How can that hurt? The problem is when you deal with somebody who is really trying to, someone who recognizes what your belief system is, and they're using that against you, so they will withhold any kind of affection or normal human caring. So you're always trying to get them to give it to you. You're always trying to like lean forward, like, and you're like, be happy, like, be nice. You're like, and you're kind of like leaning forward. It's because the belief inside there is like that you somehow have to do something to get them to feel good or to be good again. And so that belief on itself is not really that bad, although now I realize it does have pretty negative consequences, because a lot of life is realizing like that you control your own destiny, and that it is essential not to give over that sovereignty to anybody at any time. It's not that you're going to be super selfish about it, and that's probably why I didn't really worry about it, because it didn't really cause me any trouble. But when somebody recognized that in me and turned the screws on that caused now this was programmed in me when I was a kid by an abusive person. So that's why I was weak for it. That's why I was embarrassed to even mention on Ronin Man channel, because I'm like, my whole thing is unblackmailable, right? It's like, how to totally control your own life and like don't let anybody else influence you. But emotionally, I had a weakness. And I think this is what kind of the heart of unblackmailable is that realizing, like, pride aside, you've got weaknesses and they're serious, and you need to work on them. You need to figure them out. And I think I've figured out all of mine now. I really do. I think I'm pretty done on this and moving on to the next idea. But once I realized that it was my own weakness of just this stupid idea that I had, I was able to realize that, how you react or how any group person reacts is that's you. And if you react badly, okay, like you're not nice, and I'm just sitting here doing normal things, not doing anything bad, then what I should do. Now, when I was implanted with this idea, he was a very close family member. So I didn't have a choice. That's partly why I was brainwashed so deeply on this one, is I was a little kid and I didn't have like logical thought yet. So I was brainwashed when I was so small that I didn't have any ability to stop it. It just would come into me. I thought, I have to make these big people happy. Otherwise, there's going to be fighting and people being arrested and shit's going to fly all over the place and I'm going to hit and things going to go bad. So I got to fix this shit. I got to make other people happy, That way I'll protect myself too, And so that was when the idea went in my mind. But that idea then later on caused me great trouble, And so when I was able to let that go and realize it was even a belief, and then to see it from the outside and realize that, holy shit, like maybe this doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but it's kind of serious, It's like, this is fucking me over, like big time, And then like the kind of the house of cards came down, I realized there was a series of beliefs I had, which I'm not going to go into all of them, but there was a series of beliefs I had been implanted in my mind as a kid that made me vulnerable to someone who recognized them. They made me vulnerable. Like, like if let's say it was a girl, and she felt like she had to make people happy, somebody could take advantage of her sexually because she feels like if they're unhappy, she has to do something, right? So there's all kinds of consequences of this kind of belief, Whereas like when that's not a normal belief, because the normal belief is like, hey, I'm myself, I have my ideas, you're yourself, you're a separate person, you have ideas about things. If something happens where you're not happy, then I instead of worrying about you, I think to myself, wait a second, I'm not having a good time with this guy. Like I'm not enjoying this anymore. Like this is not fun anymore. Like this, I can't change this guy. I can't change this person. It's not my job to change them, and also I can't. Like I tried when I was a kid, I can't. Like it doesn't work. Like that's the other thing. It doesn't work. If it worked, I would say, hey, it's worth it. It's sacrifice, But it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It does not change them. We can only change ourselves. And so when I saw that, if something is happening because someone's not happy, they're acting weird, I need to go into myself and say, wait a second, what do I do now? Like you have to kind of go back to like elementary school emotionally on this one. And then you say, well, all of a sudden I have this weird feeling inside. I'm not happy in this situation. So what should I do? And then you say, leave, or don't meet him again, or just take a break or whatever. Like take an action that will get me out of this situation, because this person is showing me who they are and it's making me uncomfortable. I'm not enjoying it. Like whatever it is, I'm not enjoying it. It's like, this is not fun. Fuck this, And then just say, okay, I'm out of here. And not trying to change them. So that's what happens when you get abused as a kid, is one, you think it's your job, and two, you think you can change people. You have to change people. You can change people, but the reality is you can't. Like if I could change people, if I had that skill to change anybody, then I would have changed the person who abused me, because that would have been the first person I would have changed. But I can look back at my life, I can tell you 100% that the person that was abusing me never changed, okay? Never, not even a fucking little bit. In fact, they're worse now. So I tried for 50 years to change this person. And I had to admit, when I went through all this stuff, I said, wait a second, I was a failure. I was a failure at changing this person. And I really tried. Like I really fucking tried. And it did not work. So then that allowed me to say, oh my gosh. And so what the realization for me was, okay, imagine you got three people in front of you, okay? One on the right, one in the middle, one on the left, yeah? And the guy on the left does not like me, does not trust me, and does not want to change. Okay, the guy in the middle either likes me and doesn't want to change, or wants to change but doesn't trust me, doesn't know me. It's like a stranger or something. He doesn't see me as an expert in this area. So maybe it's a friend, but he needs help with math, right? I'm not good at math, so he would think, well, that guy can't help. Ronin can't help me with that. Now the guy on the right, he believes that I can help him, okay, and he wants to change both. So he believes that I'm the guy to do it, and he's ready. He's like, I want to change. And so I realized what put me in this weak situation was I never separated those people out from myself. What I would do is I would just try to help everybody the same. But the guy on the left would be pissed off because he doesn't want to change and he doesn't trust me. And then why am I doing this to myself? Like wasting my time with somebody who doesn't even fucking like or trust me, and they don't want to change. Like the guy's 300 pounds overweight and he's happy, he's proud of it, and he doesn't think he thinks I'm whatever, genetic, whatever. He doesn't believe that I have anything to offer him on this issue. So that's the real gem I got out of this whole recovery, because I realized a couple of things. One is that it's my responsibility to separate people into those categories. Like it's not anybody else's responsibility. See, I like to help people. So that's the thing. Some people don't like. I love helping people. That's the thing, is the kind of person that is empathic. Okay, I'm empathic type of personality. Someone like me, we want to help people all the time. And I was really weird too. I didn't even realize that. Honestly, I thought I was kind of a badass who didn't want to, I don't know, I just never thought of myself as a helping type person, right? Even though that's what I do all the goddamn time. I'm always trying to help people. My whole life, you know what I mean? That's what I always do. But it's crazy how I could never think that I was like that when I spent my whole life doing that. I guess I thought it was wimpy, or I don't know what I thought. But that's one thing, is I realized I was empathic, and I have this deep desire to help people. But also that it's my responsibility to separate people into the categories. And then the third thing I realized, which was a negative about me, is that when I would be dealing with the guy on the left, okay, who didn't want to change and didn't like me or trust me, when I tried to help him, he wouldn't want help, right? So he wouldn't change. So what I would do is I would get kind of like passive aggressive, kind of trying to get him to change, right? And so, you don't just find out good things about yourself when you discover deep things, And this is not a really bad thing. I mean, this is the one bad thing out of it, is I realize when someone's not doing what I want, or they're not changing, I'll go into the really nice mode. But it's like or whatever, But this doesn't work. This is stupid, So I have to let that go. I have to let go of the idea I can change them. And also I have to look very closely at people, because I do have an extraordinary ability to help people change. Every year, I swear, I get a call from this one guy, and he tells me, "You saved my life." And I'm like, "No, his name's Jeff." I'm like, "Jeff, I didn't save your life." He's like, "Shut the fuck up. You saved my life. If it wasn't for you, I would definitely be dead. Thank you." He calls me every fucking year. The fucking guy, right? So he believes it, and I have other friends like that. So I realized that, okay, I probably do have some kind of skill, and that's why I do what I do. Right now with Unblackmailable, I help people. I'm able to change people's minds where other people can't. But now here's what I couldn't see, is that is only when they want to change. And that's why I don't offer everything public, because I realize not everybody wants to change. A lot of people, they'll listen to the podcast, they'll be happy. I got some information, I'm fine, I'm not really ready to change, It's all good. Other people, they really say, "God damn it, right now, I want to change. I'm tired of this shit. I'm tired of myself acting like this. I'm tired of the pain that this is bringing. And also, I want to see new ways of living," because when you deal with somebody who is kind of a master at change, I have to say I'm pretty much like that type. I'm a reinventor of myself. I've done many times. That's one thing I respect about Madonna. I think she's a master at reinventing herself. I am too. I can recreate. I can go into investment banking. The next minute I can have a pill company making supplements with me funding it, like just crazy different skills completely, right? Cleaning the toilets, there's all the different things, writing ads to get staff, all these different skills. So I like changing. I like growing. I like this, but all that kind of change in my life and all that kind of reinvention has given me a toolbox that is amazing. Living in all these countries, speaking the languages, I have a toolbox for change that's just out of control. And so it's very useful for me when things happen, and then also I can also help other people with that, right? So, but again, the ones, people that are willing to change and believe in me, they're the ones who will opt in. Whereas on the podcast here, like just publicly, there's going to be a wide variety of people, and that's good. I don't want to change you. I don't want to do that anymore. I can't do it anyway. I'm not capable of changing you. But if somebody does want to change, then I'm all fired up. And they believe, hey, Ronin Man can help me. Then I'm like, God damn it, let's do it, man. Let's fucking do it, Then I get in there and I figure out where they're at now. And then we start the process of reframing and looking for new models and changing. And then often what happens is we'll change something big in their life. And then they'll call me back a couple days later and say, damn, like that was amazing. Like, I want to change this too, and then we work on something else, right? So that's kind of like, that's the amazing thing, is it just doesn't end at one thing, right? It just goes to the next and the next, because you realize there's so many things you're holding yourself back. Like, your life is so like mediocre compared to what it could be, But a lot of it is like changing your belief system too, like believing what you're capable of doing, And I think one of the last things I'll end on here is one thing I realized that through this whole thing, I had to do a lot of uncomfortable things to recover from this abusive situation. And again, it wasn't even the relationship. The real thing I was working on was the abuse that I had as a child that programmed me to be like this. But by working through this, oh shit, I lost my train of thought. But it's allowed me to change. Oh yeah, that I'm worthy. I never believed in like, you say you're worthy, or there used to be this like Saturday Night Live where he like looks in the mirror and he's like, I am somebody, I am something, I am good, and then it was like made fun of, and I made fun of that too when it came out, back in 1978 or something, right? And I've always thought that's ridiculous to think that way, but through this whole very, very dark experience, I realized that I needed to change my mind on that too. And I needed to say to myself that someone like me is capable of changing, is worthy of change. Like that sounds really simple, but I had been, as a kid, I was pretty bad situation. Like I had a lot of ideas. A lot of ideas were blamed on me. And so I felt like there was something flawed inside of me, like deep inside of me. There's something bad, like there's something not good. And through this whole thing, once I could see myself, clearly open the turn on the floodlights, rip the roof off the building, look down and see myself, like everything that's there. It like, also I had deep need to do it, so I couldn't kid myself any longer. So I was willing to go to any length, like whatever the fuck it is, I'm gonna face it now. Like, let's go. What's next? Okay, I gotta change this. Goddamn, let's do it. You know what I mean? Like that was literally where I was at. And that allowed me to say, I need to somehow give myself permission to look for opportunities, like to look for new things that I can change even, just to kind of, because sometimes I don't even know what I need to change. I know that I'm maybe not reaching my potential in some area, or I'm unhappy, or I'm sad, or I'm having difficulty, and I can't really, doesn't make any sense to me. That's when I say, I'm worthy, something like that. I don't know what words I'm just kind of new on this one, but I'll basically say, someone like me is worthwhile. Someone like me is worthy of figuring this thing out, something like that. Like, no big deal. But that's a big deal for me, because I don't think that was my belief before. I don't think that was my belief. I don't think I had that belief before. I think I had a different belief, and I don't even know what it was, to be honest. But it was not that I could just continually change and see good things. I think part of the reason why I left the States is because I was in a situation that I could not, it was over my head, and I could not, because I had been programmed, right? And so I was stuck in it. Like, it wasn't just a society. Like, people often talk about, MGTOW guys talk about, I got to leave the brainwashing, a society. No, this was a personal one for me. Like, I was in a situation where I was beaten down like a dog, and I couldn't handle it. I couldn't fix it. I couldn't see it. I didn't have the training. I didn't have, any kind of person to tell me what was going on. Nobody cared enough. Nobody figured it out for me. I just went on my merry way. But now that I kind of deal with all this stuff, and I've dealt with it, I see myself, I do feel that I could live in America again. Like it wouldn't affect me, because outside things don't affect me the same way they used to. Like I really, it sounds crazy, but this is a fundamental part that I've discovered about myself here. This is not just some podcast. This is like really cool, because I had a weakness that was implanted in me. Just like when a hacker puts a virus in Norton antivirus, or AVG, one of them had a virus in it, like the Russians put it in there. It was like just sitting in there waiting, right? I can't remember which software it was. Don't quote me on that. It was some software. They had implanted a virus inside of a mainstream software, inside the source code. And so that was infecting and then allowing hackers to look at information, because most people have this software in their computer. So it was like super scary, because it wasn't even like a virus. It was like part of the fucking operating system, basically. And so that's what it's about, rooting those out and getting rid of those ones. And then all of a sudden, everything changes. Because here's the good thing. The good thing about anything that's evil, that's brainwashed or put into you, or someone tried to limit you or hurt you, the good thing about it is, that I realize, is that it's not easy to do that. Okay, so if you want to fuck somebody over, it's mentally, like, get them to believe something. It's not easy to do, right? So because it's not easy to do, it's not stable. It's not solid or stable either. So once you see it, just like once they saw it, the source code in the software, it was relatively easy to get rid of it. Because like, oh my God, there's a virus built into our software that somebody implanted in the factory, or in the wherever it is they make the software, right? So then it's like, let's test the software for this thing everywhere. Let's make sure we totally eradicate this thing out of our company, right? And it's the same way with any kind of brainwashing or abuse. Is once you see it actually, and you see it in yourself, and you realize that you are now running on this operating system that's flawed, and then you see that other people have done it, it just becomes super obvious. You're like, I ain't never going to do that again. Like, there's no way I could go back in time to 3 months ago before I realized this stuff. There's no way. I couldn't. Like, it's literally impossible for me to go back. Yeah, it's a freight train straight ahead, because, I might have something else like that. I seriously doubt it, to be honest. I don't think I have anything else like this. But, it's like, once it's been seen, it cannot be unseen. It cannot be unseen, And that's the beautiful thing. So, like, change sometimes is not even about hard work or intelligence or money or anything. It's just like, it's a complex mix of stuff that really helps if you have other people around you who are at that level, who have gone through these kind of things, and also have the guts to face these things. Because what I could have done when I saw this thing, I could have ignored it. I would say most people would ignore what I spent like since March until this month studying every day about this, because I had to figure it out. No way was I not going to figure it out and discard this bullshit once and for all. I went back and saw my notes from March. I was already thinking about this in March. I was already figuring this out in March. And now, what is it? It's December. It's December 31st. Fucking tonight's New Year's Eve here in Bangkok. And that's a very good time, a very good note to end this podcast. Is like, 2019 is going to be an absolutely kick-ass year. I can feel it for me. Like, it's really like a good year. Some years I kind of go into them like blasé, like kind of just do the same old. This year is completely different for a lot of reasons for me. One of them is my daughter. Got a healthy daughter, which is awesome. And there's a very long story there. I'm never going to tell you guys the story because for a couple of reasons. So you guys don't expect me to tell the story there. So just let it go at that. But either way, like just between us, like it is a big deal to me. So I'm very grateful for that. And also there's so many things happening right now in my life that are like massive changes. And like I can feel when you undergo a fundamental shift in your life, it's like everything changes. It's kind of like if you take like a ghetto that's like all rats and crime and everything, and they just tear it down. This might not be a good example for somebody, but for some situations it's like this. You tear it all down, the swamp and the alligators and the poison and everything. You take it all down and you clean it up with, and then you put like a nice park in there. You put like nice places to live. Nice transportation that's safe. That's cheap. People can get around. People can do their thing, right? You make life livable, right? So it's like when you do that, when you make changes like that, you can't even predict what's going to happen. Like it could become a new Silicon Valley. You don't know what the fuck's going to happen because there's so many changes at once, and they're all good, basically, almost all good. So it's like, holy crap, like who knows what's going to happen? So that's how I feel about these changes in my life. There's such a fundamental shift in my thinking and in my brain that I just am like blown away, and I just think, oh my gosh, there's a new thing that I can appreciate, I can understand. And I can read. I tell you something, one big thing I can tell difference, I can read people much better than before. My reader of people is way good now. Like it was always good in a way. That's why I was a top headhunter, because I did have this ability to get into people and figure them out. But there's something where I guess what it is if somebody is malevolent or has bad intentions, I could not see that before. I did not want to see that. I didn't want to see bad. I wanted to see good. So I'm like, oh, I'll help them be good, like, oh, we'll figure it out. But I realized, like, no, in a person that's trying to do bad, they loved somebody like me, because they're like, oh, he has so much hope and optimism, perfect guy to to fuck over or steal money from, because this guy believes in the good of everybody, right? So like the scammer would look at me and say, oh, perfect, And now I'm not, the beautiful thing is I'm not cynical at all. And I'm also not closed, because I worked through this. I worked through all these issues. So like if somebody is, controlling other people, it's just easy for me to sidestep it. Like it's no big deal at all. The reason why I got so deep is the deeper you go with somebody, that's when they start fucking with the fundamental you. Whereas if you recognize somebody as, being dangerous, you can just sidestep them. It's like no big deal, because they don't have any ability to do anything. It's only when you trust them and then you doubt yourself when they say things, do things, because they're deliberately. It's like you have a little control room in your mind, and they're back there switching things off, turning things off, cutting wires, screwing things up in the system. And for you, how do you fix these things? Like, which wire is broken? Like, something's not working, like, oh, that's not working. Well, I just forget that, it's fine. It's like a huge complex ship or something where you're trying to manage the whole ship by yourself without like any like deep understanding of how all the machines work together. It just becomes this thing where you do become somewhat under the control at some level, even if it's just to feel bad about yourself or something like that. It's not necessarily to make you do anything. There's many ways to sabotage someone's life, to hurt them, and like, because you're out to destruct. Those people are out to hurt people, right? So it's easier to, for example, like ruin a business than it is to build a business. It would be easier for Google now to ruin Google. Much harder to make a new Google. Much harder, right? But they could do it if they wanted to, right? So that's the point. Is like when you're a good person, you're trying your best to be good, and you're really doing, you're trying to help people. And somebody like is deliberately messing that up and putting gunk in the engine. You start getting slowed down. It's relatively easy. It's not that difficult. Whereas it's really hard to be positive and moving forward and always improving yourself. So that's how life is. That's how life is. That is the way it is. You got the clean water here. It's all clean next to us. But if somebody pours like bad poison in there, it's fucking hard to get that out of the water. because now it's mixed up in the water. So you need to get a whole like desalinization or some kind of plant to like clean this stuff. It's almost not even worth it because the water is basically just get rid of it, right? You know, it's like the Fukushima water. They're just like storing it, right? The radioactive water. So that's kind of how you can poison something relatively easily, right? So that's why now I really truly feel that a new chapter has begun in my life. I got to tell you that. And it's not because it's New Year's Eve. It's not because any of this stuff. I just realized it's New Year's Eve, actually. So I had no idea when I started this podcast what this even was going to be about. But like, it really is for me. It's a new year, and it's a new way of looking at life. And I'm able to. It's almost like I had like 400 anvils hidden in my trunk, and now I'm just taking them out, and the car just lifts up, and just like boosh, gas mileage is way better, you know. And you know, so it's like I got these shit out of my trunk. Like I didn't even know I had it because I'm strong, so I was just pulling it along, right? But it's like hell no, I don't carry those fucking anvils from childhood, you know. Fuck that, right? You know, I don't need. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should, right? And you don't know how high you can go, you know. Like so what? You can keep going, you know. You can keep going. Oh wow, you know. Like if it was Usain Bolt, if he was pulling like, I don't know, like a truck or something, right? He could do it, right? But then he wouldn't win the world record, and he would never know that he's the fastest human on earth, right? Or the winner of, you know, the competition, right? Whether he truly is, we don't know, because there's probably somebody somewhere who can run faster than him, probably. You know, we didn't have the right parents, didn't have the right money, didn't even think about going to the Olympics, or maybe even died of a drug overdose or something, right? You know, like there's all these stories, there's all the kinds of people out there, right? But basically, if something as simple as pulling a trailer for him or a truck would mean that his whole life would be different. His trajectory from world champion, from sponsors, from, you know, feeling confident, and he did everything, to just surviving, just pulling a fucking load, basically going the same speed as everybody else. But he's like 10 times stronger. But no one knows that. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. It's like fixing shit like that so you can fly, man. So you can fly. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you very much for fucking awesome 2018. That was a great year, man. That was a great year. What an amazing year this has been. I might even do another recap kind of idea later on, because 2018 was an absolutely amazing year. Anybody's coming, sign up now for the MGTOW World Summit 2019. It's going to be February 2 to 4. And book a flight, get a flight. Don't worry about your hotel, you can figure that out later. It's just after the holiday season, or the tourist season, so easy to get places cheap. So I picked those dates. And the tickets should be cheap too. So get yourself a ticket and then sign up, register. I'll put the link in below to register. And if you don't, just keep listening and keep commenting, man. I really, let's make changes, you know, regardless. I want to hear, man.